open them again.
Hey, Ashish, since you have such a wide screen, you might consider sharing just a portion of your screen on the second share tab.
Sorry, I can't hear really well. I think there was something about sharing my screen. Is it?
Yeah, Dan was saying that maybe you were only sharing a portion, but we can see the presentation in full screen now.
Yeah, I actually had that ready, and something happened.
Yeah, it looks good.
Went away, and thanks. So welcome everyone to the group conversation for product marketing. I want to thank the support team for agreeing to swap with us because we had a clash. So thank you very much. So let's go through this. What I want to do today is cover a little bit of what we did in the last 6 or 7 weeks. That included the holiday period. The last one we had was on 4th of December last year, 2018. And I want to talk about what's coming next. So I will not spend a lot of time on what was accomplished last 6 weeks because all the links are here to enable you to be able to click on it and see anything you want to see in detail. But we worked a lot on creating demos and technical content and ramping up on the number of comparisons that we have on our website. I think we had an OKR of about 50, and I believe we hit close to like 42 altogether in the last quarter. So a lot of work done there. Customer references continue to actually increase in the pipeline. So we have, I believe, over 20 to 22 customer references, and we are now starting to publish them in Cadence. There's a long cycle time between somebody agreeing, writing it, but especially on the approval process, from the customer side, that's where we tend to get stuck. But we're starting to see that's good cadence. We just published the European Space Agency case study, which is linked out here as well. The customer advisory board membership has increased to 21 members, so that's 21 accounts. That's really good. Our target was around 15, and we continue to have very meaningful discussions both ways in these meetings that we hold virtually. The recordings are available for anybody who wants to look at what we're discussing with the customers. Analyst Relations continues to be a good focus for us, a really important focus for us. We continue to push for and get into more Magic Quadrant and Wave reports, and we have submitted 2 more, and we are expecting to see some results from that in a couple of months. We continue to do sales enablement and XDR coaching on a weekly basis, as well as a reseller enablement that's once a month based on what we have understood from the resellers. That's the cadence that they want. All the recordings are available. The sales ones are put on YouTube. The XDR coaching sessions, because they're mostly driven as a Q&A session, and the team wanted an environment that is, they can ask questions. We have not published them to YouTube. They're available internally for recording. They're meant for onboarding, recoaching, and relearning for anybody. They're not linked from the handbook necessarily, all of them. I got a comment today, so we'll make sure that they are linked properly. We continue to execute on our strategic partnerships with AWS and Google. We did a an event, a virtual DevOps conference event, Predict 2019. And the results for that have been pretty phenomenal. The number of people we had registered, it was funded 50% by Google, the rest by us. It's through a program called Marketing Development Funds. So they continue to invest with us in marketing as well. Lots of new pages and updates to the pages continue. We did the serverless launch. So, there's some links here that you want now to click. And we were also continued working in the federal space. We continue to kind of doing some thought leadership research projects with the analysts. And of course, a lot of you know that, we're starting to work on the Just Commit campaign that'll kick off shortly. So we worked on messaging, which is linked from here, if you would like to take a look. I want to focus a little bit on, what's coming on the next fiscal year 2020. This is kind of the vision from the product marketing group on how we will go to market, how we will help the team, how we will target customers. So we are defining, what we call the core target IT groups, including the buyer and influence personas, and continuing to flesh out what their challenges are, where do they go to solve their problems, how do they solve these problems, how does GitLab help, and as you see here, it's the who, it's the where, and it's the why that's really important. Why should they consider GitLab and not somebody else? And we support that, by a number of things: thought leadership, the brand that GitLab is, upleveling the message to executives and buyers, because that's a need we have, and then supporting it with the collateral that we create. That's the what and the how, right? So here's a demo that showcases the use case we're talking about, or here's a capability that we have that others don't have, or here's why you don't need to integrate with so many different tools. That's the what and how. The proof really is, don't believe us, believe these other people who are using it. So this could be customers, these could be third-party thought leaders, this could be analyst reports. Look, it's not just GitLab who's saying this. This is third-party validation by others. And then choices are really about, customers have choices. There's competition out there, there's market trends, there's influences by others. So how do we understand that better? How do we take advantage of these understandings? And we are also starting to do a win-loss analysis project, which is to understand, where do we win, how do we win, where do we lose, what are the reasons, where can we double down, where should we put more efforts, where should we close the gaps. So that'll help us kind of understand both where the messaging needs to get better, the product can get some input into this, and the sales teams can also start to understand how do you go about doubling down on what's working, how do you exploit the spaces that we have not yet done well in. So just to give you a snapshot, this is work in progress, but for a product marketing team working with the other teams, we have all these different initiatives that are either kicked off or going to kick off in the next 4 quarters. Again, this is supposed to be a very high level kind of roadmap for everybody to understand where we are engaging in. Continues to be built out as we plan the rest of the year. Very specifically breaking into what's happening in Q1. Based on the template we just showed you for the whole year. We're working on the definition of the IT groups and deep definition of the build dev IT groups, and we'll continue to do this throughout the entire DevOps lifecycle. We talked about the Just Commit campaign. We're also working on, I've kicked off a thought leadership project based on surveys with IT leaders in the US and the Americas and EMEA, where we will go and work with Forrester. Forrester's designing a survey. They will go and interview about 250 IT leaders and understand from them the pain points and challenges of multiple tools that they have to stitch together. How does it affect them? Where are their roadblocks, challenges, where are the opportunities? And drive to kind of the conclusion that there is value in a single application versus like putting together multiple tools, stitching them together, managing them, maintaining them, etc. We plan to kick off a similar thought leadership in the security research, in the security area. And thirdly, we are starting to do takeout campaigns. So these are called competitive takeout campaigns. And the first company that we are targeting is Jenkins, based on the feedback that we have received from sales. That's where they want to focus. We are hiring. Our hiring plan is ramping up. I have good news to share that we have a person who has accepted the competitive intelligence manager position, and their start date is February 19th, later this month. We continue to have some open positions for which we are hiring. I would like to ask the larger organizations help in helping us recruit, and help the team out here. Where we need your help is help us connect with customers, invite us to customer meetings, get us referenceable customers, keep an eye out for what we're doing, read the material. If you find something that can be improved, feel free to contribute and fix it. Let us know, what you think we should do more. And most importantly, we produce a lot of collateral and assets and web pages. And the ears and eyes are really all of us, right? Let us know when something is working well, we can double down on it. Let us know when something doesn't work, or you find a flaw in it, or you hear a comment, so that we can actually do better. So with that, I just wanted to stop and open it up for questions, so we can answer your questions, get some feedback, some input. I'll open it up.
Thanks, Ashish. I have a question here. I'm just curious as to what the campaign will look like for the takeout campaign for Jenkins. I'd love to just learn some more details on what that would specifically look like, as far as materials or whatever.
Absolutely. So we are just getting into the phase of planning this, but typically what that would involve is that, we would identify target accounts. We would, do a broader campaign to target those who are using Jenkins and have the pain points. We would support it with messaging. There would be a campaign on email, a dedicated website, targeted ads. It's the whole greater marketing team and not just us. And assets that we would provide would be, specific white papers, specific technical demos of why we do better. We would do enablement of the sales team on, how to approach this, what objection handling they would have, why our, product can help customers who are using Jenkins, and why they should go to GitLab, among other things. So we are just getting into the planning phase of this right now.
Thank you. And is there a timeline for when you want to roll that out?
I think that question is better answered by LJ. She's going to help us roll it out, but it is definitely this quarter that has started. So I would expect towards the mid of this quarter.
Thank you.
Ashish, it's Paul. Are you looking for like customer names that are running Jenkins? Us out here in the Salesforce know what customers are running what. So do you want us to provide those to you?
Absolutely. I think, we want to do a targeted campaign towards them. Let's find a mechanism to capture those names. Maybe it's a report from Salesforce, but I think, we would start by identifying rich targets that we already know are using Jenkins, but we would do also a broader campaign, right? Make sure that people who are looking to solve those kind of problems compare us and Jenkins, or those, who are looking to switch, are looking for, a better solution. So it'll be a broader campaign as well. But if you have a targeted list of folks, then, obviously, that really helps.
I think there's a field called solutions to be replaced that's required on any app. And you could probably search for Jenkins there. That'd probably be a first good spot to look.
That's great. I'll work with LJ on that.
So I have a question, Ashish. I'd like to learn more about the CAB Customer Advisory Board. Specifically, what are the customers' responsibilities who are on it, and how do you disseminate the information from them to other relevant teams?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Customer Advisory Board, there's a whole section on the handbook that describes it, but I'm happy to describe it here. Somebody could link that in the chat. That would be great. The idea of a Customer Advisory Board is that we want to recruit members into it who believe in GitLab, or we can get them to convert to believe in GitLab, who are actually our champions in the organizations that they work in and outside. So a good example of this would be, for example, Michael Turok. We all know that he's a big advocate of GitLab. He wants the adoption of GitLab, and he's also a good evangelist of GitLab within the company. So though we have different portions of the company and departments of the company, of a company sometimes adopt GitLab, the others are kind of curious about it. They don't know about it. So somebody who uses GitLab, somebody who's happy with GitLab, we want to recruit somebody like that, because we want a champion like this, and we want to build a board of champions. It's again going back to that proof points that I was talking about. Don't believe us, believe these guys, because they're actually using it. They actually like it. It's not us just singing our own praises. And the way we do this is we meet virtually once every 6 weeks. There are agendas defined, and the agenda is mixed of typically 2 things or 3 things. One is we always get somebody to stand up and tell us their story about how they're using GitLab and their challenges and where they're going next with it. So this helps everybody else who attends among their peers, for them to understand, the different GitLab usage cases, the challenges of rolling this out, the successes that they're achieving with this, etc. So it's very useful for those who attend to learn from each other also, because they discuss amongst each other, hey, look, here's a challenge I have, how are the others approaching it? So it's a good peer-to-peer networking group for them. But then the other side of this is they have a very close relationship with us, because we meet very frequently. We understand what they're doing, where they need to go. They have deep discussions with the product managers who will often attend the CAB meetings. We might pick a certain section of the product, let's say it's security, and we'll deep dive into that day. So we could talk about use cases, we could talk about direction, vision, what's on the roadmap, what do they want to see. So I know we can drive all of this through issues, and we are very transparent, but this gives them a forum to kind of really interact with each other, interact with us, and form that deep relationship. So it's a give and take kind of a forum, if I might say, right?
Yeah, that's super awesome. Do you think those folks might be interested in speaking opportunities, not just about GitLab, but about cloud native, about the ecosystem, things like that?
Yes, so many of them have, right? They've spoken in conferences. Some of them have done webinars with us. We don't make it an ask that if you're in the customer advisory board that you will have to do that. But if you really think about the nature of the folks who are joining the CAB, they're already very passionate about GitLab. They want us to do better. They want to give us advice. They want to speak on our behalf. So we do see that happen, from within the customer advisory board members.
Okay, last thing, and then I'll stop. If I have opportunities for such people, as an example, we've had an open source leadership summit. They've been holding a keynote for us. Do you think we can ask them if they are interested in participating, that kind of thing?
All right. So your question, if I understand it correctly, is if there are speaking opportunities that you believe,
that we find basically.
They find. So could we ask the CAB members? Absolutely. So I think the way you want to do that is you should reach out to Kim Locke, and she runs these board meetings, and she defines the agenda. And so she could very well kind of put it in the next agenda, ask them. The more visibility we have, of course, the better. Again, there's a mix of people. Some people are very willing to go out and talk in conferences. And will do so, and some are willing, but their companies won't allow them. And then, of course, some people are not so willing to go and talk in front of thousands of people. So put in the request. We'll make sure that it reaches them, and having if somebody's interested, then we'll surely make it happen.
Thank you.
Other questions? There's something about product marketing that you don't understand that we do that I'm happy to answer. And everybody is on the team here from the product marketing team, so you don't have to ask me the question directly. I mean, for anybody on the product marketing team, we're here.
There's a question on chat from Larry at 803 about who are the customers on the advisory board. I don't know.
Yeah, but we can't. We're on live stream, so we shouldn't. We'll take that offline.
Okay.
Yeah, that information is available. Happy to share. And thank you, Philippe. I saw your comment.
Welcome.
So on the customer advisory board, because there's been a lot of interest here, I would like to say that if you want to attend a live session, please reach out to Kim. What happens is we don't want a ratio of where there's like 30 GitLab folks and maybe only 15 customers have joined that day. But depending on the topic, the attendance, we change that mix all the time. So if you're discussing something cloud native, for example, Priyanka, we'd love for you to come in there. We're discussing something about security, Philippe, it would be great to have you there. So the topics and agenda are always published ahead of time. There's a calendar, and if you would like to check that out, if you have an interest in participating, please do reach out to Kim Locke.
I have one last question. So with all of the content coming out from the team, is there a centralized location where we can find all of this and stay up to date? Or is it kind of a mixture of websites, and being up to date on the meetings and Slack channels?
So I think it's a combination of all. So what our first destination for anything we create is on our website, right? A web page, or it shows up on the website. We tend to kind of share specific things that we publish. For example, analyst report comes out, we'll share it on the Slack channels, we'll share it in this FGU meeting, etc. If it's another comparison, for example, coming out, then we don't necessarily go and publish it somewhere, but we tend to try to list it in the every 6 weeks FGU. We don't list every little thing, but the major assets, major pages that we publish, we always try to include it. That's why I didn't go through each one of them. There are links there. So one way to do this is, all these FGU slides are stored in Google Drive, and you can always look at that. But it's a good suggestion. Maybe we should have a central place where it's just a running list of everything that we produce. We tend not to do that. We put it in the right place, that's where people will come and consume it. I think there's a comment here which is that's very appropriate. We are working through our own GitLab issue boards. So anything we work on is always there. So you'll see the issue for that. You'll see the final deliverable from that. That's another way to look at it from top down level. Like if you want to dig only into analyst reports, or you want to dig only into the comparisons, you can always go and see what assets have been produced there. Or there's a customer reference board, there's a customer case study board.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking for onboarding purposes for new people, having one central place that lists out all the channels really where you can find sales materials would be nice.
Right, and Philip, to that comment, I'm starting to work with David and the sales team to define what onboarding will look like. What's the content? I mean, I know we do onboarding today, but how do we make it better? How do we make it a process that's repeatable and scalable? How do we make sure that the latest content that we create is slotted in the appropriate position? Any other questions? Any suggestions? All right. If not, thank you very much for joining. You know how to reach it. Yes, there's a question.
Well, actually, I'm responding. Priyanka asked how we make analyst relations work. And I just wanted to say this because I had a long conversation, ironically enough, with Gartner, my two Gartner reps yesterday, my rep and his boss. And they were saying, GitLab is really amazing at analyst relations. And we were talking about it. It's a combination of two things. Part of it is I was an analyst for 15 years, so I know the industry really, really, really well. But the other thing we're talking about is GitLab itself, the way we do things, the way we have boards and issues, the way we organize ourselves. I don't think I could do this job in another company anywhere as easily as I can do it here because of the culture that we have, the transparency that we have, the way that I can just put my issue board and show Gartner, here's all your inquiries I'm working on. And it, you know, and that's the whole product marketing team, because when I got here, I didn't know how to use GitLab, and everything I know, John Jeremiah taught me, or William Chia, or Dan Gordon, or Ashish, right? So, and I'm still learning, right? But it is that, so half the reason GitLab is a rock star, or maybe 3/4 the reason GitLab is a rock star in Analyst Relations is because we're GitLab, right? So that's the answer, right?
It's killing it. It's so inspiring. Thanks for sharing how you do it. Honestly, just hearing this, you should talk about how you've set up that workflow. Maybe a blog post.
Well, actually, you can go to the handbook page, and a lot of the workflow is documented in the handbook. So,
I think Priyanka is suggesting a couple of blog posts would be very interesting. That's a great idea.
That's what
I like that. Let's talk about that. I'd like to know what you would want to know, and then I can write that up in a blog post.
Yeah, because I bet a lot of people would be interested, because Analyst Relations is so hard and very few people can get it right. And you've done it, and you've done it in the GitLab way. I think that's cool.
Right, but I think the GitLab way is the secret.
Let me brag about that a little bit, Priyanka, now that you're asking. But I think I'll add to that number one, we have increased our interactions with the analysts maybe 20-fold since this time last year, right?
Wow.
So we have signed up agreements with about 5 different analyst firms. We have probably upped our briefings and our inquiries, and the product team has been really critical to this as well. So the more analysts know about us, the more they can write about us, right? So we've completely upped this tempo of X number of briefings has gone to maybe 20x. So the more we can brief them, the more they get to know. And we're starting to do this across categories as the product gets deeper. Inquiry, so we get input from them. The product team jumps in. I think for me, going from 1 analyst report last year at this point to about 8, MQs and waves is a really big achievement thanks to the greater team. It's not just product marketing. We get the security team jumping in when we kind of need expertise on security. We get the product team jumping in. We get Sid jumping in, right? We get Brandon jumping in. So there's a lot of folks who are helping. Our job is to open up these avenues and tell them what we know. We are like a breath of fresh air because we do things differently from other companies, and that really helps.
Yeah,
I think
the part of it is the GitLab attitude. The analysts' feedback I get all the time is they like talking to us, because a lot of companies come in very arrogant and very, we're number one, we're the best at this. I mean, every press release starts out with company X, a market leader in blah, 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 right? Even if blah, blah, blah is in writing bad press releases. And, I'm sure you see this on the speaking circuit, right? People who show up and they're kind of like, hey, I'm the greatest. GitLab always comes in going, hey, hi, we're working on some stuff here, and we've got a couple questions. We'd like to know what you think. We always start by asking them what they think instead of telling them who we are, right? And then they kind of go, I said, here's the context we want to know. This is how we're looking at it. And people just want to talk to us, and they like talking to us because everyone at GitLab is that way, right? There's this sort of, hey, we're here and we're right here. And because we don't have to be the leader in every category, we just want to show that we're there. And it's, that MVC concept allows us that freedom to not have to have a perfect product to get in front of them and then find out it isn't perfect. We're allowed to just be where we are and be who we are, and
Joyce,
that's good enough.
I know you're very passionate. Rounding Joel for us is if an analyst firm like Gartner writes a case study about us, a vendor, that never happens, right? And so we're doing well. Thank you very much, Joyce, and the greater team. We're at the end of time, so I want to thank everyone for joining, and you know where to reach us if you have more questions or suggestions or input for us. Thank you.